Okay. So on the next slide, we have some of our leadership, or sorry, our chapter outline. So we're going to be welcoming our leadership team and our guest speakers, and then we're going to have just questions and comments for tonight. And then that's basically how we're going to run things today. And so the next slide has all of our leadership. So Kayla Garver is our president, and I am the vice president. And then I'm also subbing in as the treasurer for now because our current treasurer is busy with student teaching. Erin Fitzpatrick is our secretary. Theo Thompson is our advocacy chair. And Mara Williams is in charge of our fundraising committees. And so on the next slide, we have our counselors. So Dr. Sharon Parnan is with us and Dr. Brad Oliver. They are both great counselors. I don't know if Dr. Wiley Sirk or Dr. Sheila Cuffey's on tonight, but they also are really great at helping out with all of our meetings and leadership events. And then the next slide. So our first speaker tonight is Jean Russell, and she's the 2016 Indiana Teacher of the Year. And right now she teaches at Haverhill Elementary in Southwest Allen County Schools. So Jean, did you want to say a little bit about your teaching career? Or
Sure, yeah. Well, believe it or not, this is year 31, and that seems pretty unbelievable. I was in the classroom for 21 years and taught upper elementary grades, 4th and 5th, and a little bit of 6th. And then I became a literacy instructional coach in Southwest, and this is my 11th year of doing that. So I get to go into classrooms for about 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and I'll meet with the teacher and we'll come up with some goals for our time together. And then I'll completely take over everything during that literacy block for about 2 weeks. So I'll do all the planning and teaching and assessing, giving the teacher an opportunity to watch kids learn and sort of see hopefully the teaching moves that I'm making. And then we scoot into sort of co-teaching, a little more me and a little less them. And then throughout that time, it sort of transfers that most of the responsibility then to them. And during that time is when we are able to really make the most growth and start not just shifting maybe what we're doing, but what we're thinking and how we're thinking, so that by the end of the time, we've hopefully met all of their goals and maybe a couple of mine that I had too. And then I'll coach out and they'll be empowered then to be an even more effective literacy instructor than they were when I got there. And they'll have that for the rest of their career. So I like to think that the impact that I'm able to make in my current position is, I sort of think of it as every class, like 25 kids. And then also then those teachers get to, have that knowledge and that experience then for the rest of their career. So I love the impact that I'm able to make, but I mostly love that I still get to be with kids and I still am in the job of teaching. And it's just it's a perfect fit for me. And I've enjoyed every minute of this. It's a little bit crazy, but I love it. And then I'm also our title director. So right now is kind of that time where we shift over from gathering all the data and assessments and so forth and sort of launching then into our intervention. So it's kind of a crazy time that way too. So yeah, I'm always busy, always have something great to do, and have the perfect job for me.
Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so our second speaker is Jerome Flewelling. He is our 2018 Indiana Teacher of the Year, and he teaches APs, physics, mechanics, and chemistry at Crown Point High School. So if you're in the secondary education, this is kind of more your field for those of you watching in the future. So Flew, would you like to talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I actually started out down in the Muncie area at Franklin Lapel teaching down there, but I met my wife while she was at Ball State, who was up from Northwest Indiana near Chicagoland. And so after teaching down there for a couple of years, we moved up closer to her family. So I'm in I think it's my 23rd year teaching this year. and I teach, like you said, AP Physics and dual credit physics, and just absolutely enjoy every moment of it. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, and Kayla, if you could go to the next slide. These are some questions and things that I've come up with, but for anybody who's watching this now, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions or enter them in the chat bar. I don't know if you guys want to just do like whoever feels comfortable answering them or not, but the first question I have is, have you ever felt like you were in a slump?
Oh,
Jean,
let's be
you're
real.
smiling.
Go ahead, Flew.
Okay, so I am a really active person, kind of like Jean said. I always need to be doing something, and so I feel like there are definitely seasons where I'll come to the end of something and I'll have about a half of a year or a year where I'm just like, this is just boring and I'm missing something and maybe I shouldn't be teaching. And then I'll launch into a new project or something. Like the first couple of years of teaching, I didn't know my curriculum extremely well. And so I focused on every year building a new aspect of my curriculum better and making it, like I would introduce maybe 3 weeks of my curriculum one year, and then the following year I would expand that into the full amount, just so I become familiar with it first and then to expand it bigger. Well, when I finished getting all of my units down, then I was sort of like, well, what next? And then we launched into turning our stuff into a learning management system. So it went into putting our stuff into the learning management system and teaching that way. And then after I got that done, it was doing projects. And so it just seems like for me, when I get into the slump, it's constantly that, what can I do better? What can I do to improve myself? And what's going on right now, either in my classroom or in education, that I could bring that into my classroom or give that new opportunity or that new thing for my students. And that generally helps me get out of those slumps, because it unfocuses it off of me and focuses it on the students and what are they going to get out of this and how are they going to benefit from whatever it is that I'm improving at that time. So Jean, your turn.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I've taught, just a few grade levels when I first started. I really did stay pretty much in the intermediate grades, but I looped for several years, and that was super challenging because you have to know the whole curriculum and the kids and whatever comes with that in fourth grade. And then whoops, next year, you're not teaching any of that. You're going to scoot into another one. And then you go back. And by then, there'd be some changes and some things that you'd want to retool and so forth. So that kept me pretty sharp and helped me from feeling too slumpy. And I loved having the kids for 2 years was incredible. Like, that second year when we all showed up on the first day, it was so awesome. And it completely and totally broke me into shattering pieces when they left at the end of fifth grade after 2 full years, and they were moving on to middle school. And I thought I would, like, the first time that happened, it was like middle of July. And my husband said, "Are you ever going to be okay from this?" I'm like, "I don't know. Just give me a minute." And then I got my next kiddos. It was so funny. I had a conversation with my mom. She taught forever kindergarten, first grade. And I got my next kiddos. So then they were fourth graders, right? And I had just said goodbye to essentially sixth graders. And I called her and said, "Oh my gosh, these kids have got to get it together. Like, this is ridiculous. This is a mess. They can't do any." And she's just kind of listened. And pretty soon I got to the end of whatever my venting was. And she said, "No, honey, you'll have to change." And she was exactly right, because they were exactly where they were supposed to be. And I needed to change to get back to where they were so that I could grow another group of kiddos who I loved just as much as the last one, but I thought I never would, right? So I think, that little sentence that my mom said to me a really long time ago has stuck with me always. And it is, you will have to change. Mm-hmm. Change can sometimes be scary, and we will go to great lengths to avoid it. But what we have to remember is that change can be good. And in my case, it's always been good. I mean, because even if it isn't everything I want it to be, in retrospect, I can see that it was supposed to happen when it happened the way that it happened. So I think being open-minded to new opportunities that come along is really important. Another time that really sticks out in my mind, I had been teaching 5th grade for a while. So the looping had finished because we had an odd number, a different number of 4th grade and 5th grade sections. So that wasn't working as much anymore. So I stayed in 5th grade, and I loved my team and I loved my job. And it was spring, and I went back into my storage room to get some things out for this big project that we liked to do every year. And I'd never, ever had a feeling like this before. And I just had this moment where I asked, how many more times am I going to do this? And I knew that it was time to talk to my principal about a possible grade level change, or I didn't know what, but I knew it was time for something different. And I had been, reaching out a lot, district-wide, giving a lot of professional development to my whole district, working on committees that way, really trying to, seek out opportunities for impact and for challenge that were outside of my classroom some, because I'd kind of dialed it in, and it wasn't that I wasn't changing for the kids every time they came, and that there was plenty, but I don't know, I can't explain it. It just wasn't quite enough. I had this moment where I just knew I needed something different. And anyway, that just happened to be the year where they created these positions for literacy coaches. And not very many days later, it just so happened that my principal came and said, would you be interested in applying for that position? So the rest is history, and I've loved it. And one of the things that I love the most about my job is that it is changing every day. I do not know from day to day, even what my schedule is going to be sometimes. I mean, other than the time I know I'm going to be in a classroom, the rest of the day is up for grabs. So I think do not be afraid for change, and seek change, and seek opportunity for ways to impact in different ways, so that you are having a huge impact on boys and girls all the time. But if there's ever a time when you're sort of feeling like maybe that isn't quite enough, don't beat yourself up about it. Look for an opportunity to have an impact on fellow teachers, or your team, or maybe start a parent program that's different, or something after school. But just broaden your horizons and look for change, and you will never be bored.
I'd love to echo that, because it's the times that I've been in a slump, it's almost like I felt trapped, or like there was no other way. And there is always a way to get out of the slump, whether it is, helping other teachers, or whether it's helping your kids, or whether it's learning more about your curriculum. It's just finding that niche, like Jean said, that will better you and better your kids, and what's going on with that.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, I really like those answers. So this year, I think it's safe to say that everybody has been affected some way, somehow, by this pandemic. And a lot of teachers were unsure if they were going back to school in the fall. Parents were unsure if their kids were going to go back to school, or everything. So how has the pandemic affected you and your classrooms this year?
It's your turn, Flew.
So our school decided to go hybrid. So we have half of the school is here Monday, Thursday. The other half is here Tuesday, Friday, and everybody has a virtual day on Wednesday. They chose to do that because we had something like 70% of our parents wanted full-time in person, and something like 60% of our teachers wanted full-time virtual. So they compromised and did sort of that half and half. I'm honestly kind of surprised that we've made it as long as we have, in a really good way. It has been really good to see the students. It's all, most of the classes we can do 6 feet. Our principal's taken a really hard line on masks. It's not an option. You have to wear them, and you have to you wear them properly, that kind of thing. And it still is interesting though. Like the kids are still kids, and they still want your attention, but it's such a different dynamic of having them in their seats with the masks, and they don't particularly feel like they can talk to each other that much, because with the mask on, it's not like you can just have like a small conversation to the side with the person beside you, because you have to talk loud enough that everyone in the room can hear it, because it's so quiet. And so to me, the challenge has just been trying to break out of that and trying to get them, I feel like I'm where I would normally be with my kids, maybe 3 weeks into school, even though we're here like 6 or 7 weeks into school, because I've only seen them twice a week. And then because when they are here, they're really muted and subdued with the masks and the social distancing and all that. So it's been a challenge, and particularly because I teach a lab class, it's one of those like, do we do labs? Do we not do labs? I told my wife the other day, one of the biggest things that I was afraid of going into the pandemic was I've spent my whole career changing my classroom so that it's not like Sage on the stage and, you know, here's another worksheet. It's all activities, it's all lab based. And to do that in the pandemic is just really hard because, you know, the kids still want it, but then you're also constantly in your brain going like, is this safe? Is it okay for them to be that close, that long? What about touching the equipment? So it's just another aspect of teaching to navigate during these kind of weird times for that. So I don't know if that gives you much of anything on that, but I'm going to pass it to Jean for you here.
Oh, here we go. So for us, we gave our parents a choice, and we have 80% that are in person and we have 20% that are virtual. And that affected a lot of teachers because they had already gotten their classroom ready and then were chosen to be virtual teachers. So we have teachers that are dedicated either in school or virtually. We're not trying to do both at the same time. But our biggest initial challenge was supporting them, because first of all, there was an emotional component to that. They felt like they were going to, you know, not have that sort of community that they're used to. And remember, we're talking about elementary teachers here, right? So we like to be with the people and we gather them up and tell them stories. And, you know, it's about our physicalness and closeness when it comes to our community. So they had a time of mourning where they had to sort of let something go and embrace something new. And obviously, like anything, some have done a better job of that than others. I'm really lucky. We have 2 virtual teachers in my school, a first grade and a second grade, and they are just leading the charge. They're so amazing. I just can't with how amazing they are and the things that they have worked out and worked through to be able to still have the kind of community and create activities that are still very interactive and so forth. It just blows my mind. And then there are some who still are just sad, and they're putting on a brave face for their students every day and doing what they, you know, need to do, because that's what we do. But their hearts are hurting. So I think that's our hardest thing is, and that's not usually the case. When you talk to elementary teachers, we start talking about kids and that's it. Like, we don't talk about the grownups, right? Just deal. But that has been a shift for us. We have really had to be mindful of one another, of the grownups in the building and how they're feeling and what they need to be able to feel okay with what they're, you know, having to deal with, whatever that is every day. And there was a huge learning curve at the beginning. Obviously, technology is very, very hard and different in every home, and parents were frustrated after a long pandemic and they wanted things to work the first time. And I think there was a lot of impatience. And so that was hard, but they have problem solved amazingly. They've made, you know, help buttons that parents can go to right away and kids can too. They've made videos for everything under the sun to solve any problems that might come up. And they've taught their parents how to be self-sufficient, and then us, the kids, to be able to solve a lot of their own problems, and things are much better from that aspect. And I think one of the big lessons they learned was, you know, they were afraid that if they were available all the time, like too much, that the parents would never stop asking questions, because it just so happened that I actually had to be the virtual teacher for first grade of my school for the first week, because our teacher's father died totally unexpectedly. And like the next day we were starting school. So I said, hi, I'm Mrs. Russell. You don't know who I am, but I'm your virtual teacher for the first week of school. So, you know, whatever. Anyway, it was good for me because I had to really get in the boat and figure out what that looked like. And we had, within the first like 5 minutes of launching them off to go do something by themselves, I had 63 emails. And I thought that was, you know, just a one-off, but right away, that's what everyone was saying. So then, you know, our teachers, who are so much smarter than I am, figured out that if they were to have like 20 minutes at the end of a day, say 2:30 to 2:50 or whatever, available every day for parents, that would help. And it did. It became, and then they did these help buttons and they made these, videos and all these things and solve these problems. And by being available, then parents would say, is this something that can wait till 2:30? And often the answer was yes. And so they would come and you'd be able to solve a problem with a whole group of parents because they'd all come, and instead of one at a time and so forth. And the emails slowly, dwindled, and now they have a pretty normal amount. So I don't know, I'm sort of talking all around this, but it's been majorly impactful for the grownups. And like I said, that is very out of character for us to even think much about that, because we're usually so focused on the kids. But, we can't be a good teacher if we're not okay. So that has had to be where our love and attention has gone. The kids are fantastic. They do not complain. I thought they would. They wear their masks. They're happy to be here. They adjust. They have zones on the playground. We're following them around, cleaning everything they touch. They're just fantastically wonderful, and they want to be here, and they're doing everything they can to stay. But mostly the ones we're the most worried about are the teachers, and we're doing okay. I think for a while there, it was a little iffy, but we're doing okay. My new worry is at the semester, parents get to re-choose. And I cannot get a feel for how it's going to go. Will we have some of those teachers have to change again? We have some of our virtual teachers that are in one school physically, because that's their school, but they're teaching kids complete class from another school. What will happen if so many of those kids come back? Will that teacher now have to move to a new school? And not that that's so horrible, but it's not something that was considered or communicated. So, what will happen then? And I know everybody's kind of holding their breath and hoping for the best, that it will be a smooth transition for everyone.
Thank you. So I know that for teachers, homework assignments can pile up after a while. So how do you stay productive in the classroom, keeping up with assignments and planning for the next day's lesson or the next week's lesson? How do you plan around that and stay productive?
So we were really fortunate. Our school, with the hybrid schedule, they gave us a 1 hour delay also. So we had that time in the morning every day. We also have professional learning communities, or PLCs, that it was a really good chance for us to meet with them. And then because we have Wednesday as a virtual day, it gives us a chance to meet and catch up with that also. Quite honestly, I think my dream teaching schedule would be 4 days in person and 1 virtual day, because that one day, it alleviates so much of the extra stress, because it gives you such more flexibility in your day to accomplish the things that you just couldn't get done with a room full of students every day. In terms of staying productive, it's for me, it's kind of like riding a tsunami. You have to stay on top of it, otherwise you get buried, and it doesn't take very long to get buried. So it's like, as soon as the grades come in, even if I don't feel like grading, I just sit down. I'm like, I've got to plow through at least 20 of these, or I have to get through at least 50 of these, or half a class or whatever, and just make sure that I'm on top of it. One of the things that I started doing a couple years ago too, was I send out an email every Friday to my students and parents, and it has the schedule for the following week on it. And it also has the student's grade in it and how many missing assignments they have. So it makes me be on top of my planning for the following week. And it also makes me be on top of my grading, so that when I send that out, it's all up to date. And that, if nothing else, I would send them out just to keep myself accountable for staying on top of all that stuff. So that's kind of how it's a system that has worked for me. But as a new teacher, you have to find the system that works for you. Whether it's every morning you get up a little bit early and you plan for the day, or you stay at school a little bit late. The only thing that you can't do is you can't make school be 24/7. Because like Jean was saying, you can't serve your kids if you're empty. So you have to have time for yourself, whether it's going out and exercising or going with friends to the movies or spending time with your family. But there comes a time where you have to say no to school. There's a whole lot of yes that happens to school, but there are also times when you have to say, I just need to go home and leave it at work today. But yeah, so that's that's a couple of the ways that I stay productive. So Jean, your turn.
I make a lot of lists. I am a list person. I love your idea, Flew, of having like a built-in way that you're accountable to your kids, because we'll throw ourselves in front of a train for our kids, right? I mean, you'll do it. So that is really smart to have a built-in communication. And obviously you're doing it for your boys and girls because they need that, right? To be able to be accountable to themselves and to each other and to you and to, the work that they're supposed to be doing. But you're right, that really, really holds you accountable. That is so smart. And if you send them out on Friday afternoon, then you've got to have a lot done by then, which means you've freed yourself up for the weekend. So
the parents are always like, oh, wait, you're grounded for the weekend.
Oh, bummer. Hand me your phone. You can have it back when you're done. Oh, man. No, seriously, that's so smart. Yeah, so productive. One of the ways that I really try to help my teachers with that is to help them figure out a way to work together. Teamwork makes the dream work. And, in our situation where you have several teachers teaching the same grade, it is silly to have everybody doing the same exact thing on a different piece of paper or making a different video or whatever. So I think blended learning, and my district started this a long time ago. We started 7 years ago with that. So when the pandemic hit, even though it was not what anybody wanted, we were very, very ready. Our kiddos knew without hesitation how to be able to access all of their learning online if they needed to. So the nice thing about blended learning, though, is that it isn't there to get you ready for e-learning. It's in a classroom to help you be more efficient, right? And be able to provide more accessibility for your boys and girls. And so that means if I want to have, 3 smaller reading groups a day and 3 smaller math groups a day, so I can teach, responsively and offer differentiated instruction for all of my kiddos, then that means that the rest of them need to have some meaningful things to do, some ways to show what they know, and they're going to need to do it on their own. Well, if you're using the device, and we have Canvas as our LMS, so they can go into their schedule, and we have in there, if you're in whatever the reading group that's not with me right now, this is your activity. So maybe you're just read to self. Maybe you are listening to reading and you're going to go to a particular app. Most likely, though, you're going to be actually producing something so that I can see what you can do independently. So maybe you've got a word work activity, and that means that a video has to be made for that. So I'm going to explain. So boys and girls, you're going to get one of these and get one of these, and you're going to do this amazing thing, and then you're going to turn it in when you're finished, and remember how we talked about or whatever. And then they can listen to that video multiple times. They can stop it, start it, and that makes it what they need. So their learning is accessible to them. And then, then they're going to have maybe a response to reading. Okay, so how we've been talking about character. Well, today you're going to have the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Well, somebody has to make all those videos, and we have them every day. So that's where your team comes in. It is not necessary for your kids to always see your face when they are getting instruction. As a matter of fact, to be able to kind of widen that community of who they see, because they know the teacher next door and the teacher next door, to be able to see any of our faces when it comes time for listening to that video for word work or listening to that video for response to reading or whatever we want them to do, that could be any 3 of us. So then we're able to work smarter, not harder. And we say, I'll make all the videos this week for word work, and you make all the videos this week for response to reading, and you make all the videos this week for problem solving or whatever. And then the other thing that we do is contribute, a lot of times we'll make Google Slides, kind of like you have here, to kind of go along with those videos. So there are some visuals for them that you can use. And again, we can contribute to those together. So I'll make the slides for this, you make the slides for that. Then we have those for teaching on the smartboard or to be used for those videos. So the more that we're using blended learning, it's for accessibility for the boys and girls, but what we get from that is this opportunity to all contribute to their learning and not have to be, I have to do every single thing for my kids every single day. So that is a really, really great way to be productive. I think that the most important thing to keep in mind is, though, don't pigeonhole yourself. I'm always coaching my teachers now. How long have you been doing word work for your team? Oh, about, 8 weeks. Okay, time to do something else. Like, you want to be able to be, an effective teacher and maker of lessons and planner and whatever in all areas. So that's great. It's time for a switch. Now you can do something else and you can do, switch it around. So anyway, that has helped. And we were doing that long before the pandemic. So when we went home, we just kept doing that. And again, those kids were getting their instruction that way, obviously more than they were getting in the classroom, but we were all contributing. Once again, they were going to see Mrs. Russell's face, they were going to see Mr. Flewelling's face, they were going to, whoever throughout the day as they were accessing their learning. So one of the ways to stay productive is to work with your team. And the other thing is there's sort of some built-in PD there, because the person next door is going to be better at something than you are, and you're going to be better at something than they are. So when they see your stuff and you see their stuff, then it sort of raises the bar a little bit. You're like, oh, I like the way you did that, or where did you find that, or how do you do that? And now, it's that real collaboration that helps us all to grow without even, having to sort of formally have any conversation that somebody has had to start for you or fix up for you or go to a PD or anything. It's just the person right next door who's doing amazing things, but there are these built-in opportunities for you to be sharing that. So being productive means sharing. It means opening your door. It means sharing the load and learning from one another.
That ties back to the slumps earlier too. When you are sharing that much, not to say that you're not going to get into a slump, but it's so much easier to stay motivated when you're like, oh, what did you do? And how did you do that? And I'm so interested in that. And like you said, sharing that with your team.
Yeah, I just had a collaboration fair, but I've never had one of those before, but I was trying to think of a way. We are doing some work with, providing opportunities for boys and girls, maybe thinking about your kiddo that needs the most help, but understanding that the modifications that you're going to make for that child will actually be what's best for everyone in the room, right? That creating accessibility for one creates accessibility for all. So in giving the PD on that, we were, people were starting to really pick up on different parts of that and things that they were really resonating with. And I was able to see, because I'm everywhere, the cool things they were doing, but I realized that they didn't know what each other was doing. So I just said on Wednesday morning, hey, bring one thing, do not make anything, do not do anything special, nothing. Like, open your computer and pick one thing that you have done since we've started this work together, that to help learning be more accessible for the kids in your room. And it was amazing. We had so many conversations with kindergartens talking to fourth grade, third grade's going, wait, come over here, show me how you did that. And now, so then I had to go around and take a picture of everything, and I put a Google slide together of all the ideas with their names, so you know who to go to and grade level. And then we're going to try some stuff and fail forward, because we love to do that. And then we're going to come back together so that we have that opportunity to say, okay, so I tried that thing that you did, and this is what happened to me, or now I have a question, or now I'm wondering, and we can come back together again to the source, right, that we got the idea from, and have an opportunity to ask our questions and to even move probably both of them forward after that. So that's a little bit more contrived, right? But it's so important to collaborate.
I love that, because when they come back, half the time, if someone uses my idea, they come back and they've modified it to make their idea.
Exactly.
And then I'm like, well, I never even thought about that. Yeah, I should try that too.
Yeah. Did you know you could do that? No, wait, show me that. Yeah.
Whoa.
So and now I'm going to make it a quarterly thing, because it was such a big hit. And I just, we've got to find ways to open the door between us, because a lot of times we don't need to leave our building to grow. We just need to tap into one another, and this can be an isolating job. It's pretty easy to close your door and do your thing, but you have to know that you're probably going to have more slumps if you're not doing that, if you're not seeking out that growth opportunity.
Yeah, those are great ideas. I love the what you said, Flew, about not letting the teaching kind of consume your whole entire schedule. That's something that I think that, like, us college students are kind of feeling right now, because we have our online classes, we have our in-person classes, we have our field experiences, everything. And so there's not a lot of time for that free time, but definitely need to make room for unschool activities. The last question that I have is, what do you do during the summer to prepare for the school year? So do you like still meet with your other teachers, or how do you plan your summer?
I have to say that I am kind of traditional on this, that summers are very summery for me. So it usually takes me about 2 to 3 weeks to decompress from the year, to where if it's been a really, really rough year, then I'll find that I am napping or sleeping a lot the first 2 or 3 weeks of summer. If it was rough emotionally, that I'll find I just wander around the house for 2 or 3 weeks of the summer going like, what do I do? I can't find anything I'm interested in right now. And then after that, it's a lot of family time, spending time with my family. My wife is also a teacher, so we have the time all together. So we like to travel a lot. And then it's not until usually about the end of July, the beginning of August, that I'll have the dream that every teacher has before school starts. It's the nightmare that is specific to you and whatever it is that you're afraid of. And so as soon as I have that dream, I know school is coming. For me, it is that they changed my room and never told me. And so I come to the class the first day and they're like, oh, this isn't your room. And then I spend like 4 periods trying to find my classroom. But so anyway, a long story short, I find that it's something that I really just don't turn off. There are a lot of things that I'm doing that I'm constantly thinking like, could I modify that for the classroom? How could I use that in the classroom? So it's not specifically just in the summer. It's anytime. You know, we for our birthdays one year, we went geocaching. And it was in the middle of geocaching. I was like, oh my goodness, this is just exactly like what we do in vectors. And so we took and we modified that so that our students do sort of a geocache activity. They use the vectors that they're learning in class, and then we hid a cache out on our campus, and they have to go get the cache based on that. It's other times where, like, I was sitting in Subway one night and it was dark outside, and I looked in the window and I could real clearly see my reflection and how far into the window my reflection was versus me from the reflection, which is all optics, which we study in physics. You know, and to take a picture of that and to bring that in and show the students and do that, it's just, you know, once you get into your curriculum, that stuff never turns off. You come across something and it's just like, it's almost like a teacher aha moment, you know, where you're like, oh, that would be perfect for this curriculum. And you bring that back to the classroom. So I guess if you want to talk specifically for the summer, for me, the summer is really like a rest, an R&R to rejuvenate myself, to bring myself back into the classroom. Because again, you can't give to your kids if you're empty. And so it's a time for me to come back and recharge for that.
I would like to say that I use it more to recharge than I probably actually do. But I do very much try to be intentional. I work really hard to read books that are not professional, that are just kind of fluff and stuff. And so that's, I always know I'm truly relaxed when I'm reading a book that I don't have to read. And I try to get outside a lot. I'm inside more than I like to be when I'm, you know, during the school year. I am an outside person. I'd be out there all the time if I could. So I think those are the two ways that I'm really intentional in the summer about trying to make sure that I'm getting some time that's different, that doesn't feel like it's during the school year. On the other hand, I tend to be kind of a big thinker, and I can get a big idea or dream or like big next thing that I really want to do right smack in the middle of, you know, February, when I barely have time to sleep, and I have to shelve that right then. But then in the summer, I can get it back out and work on that. So I think really throughout all my career in the summer, I've taken that time to, you know, create that unit or come up with a professional development plan, or sometimes it's more brass tacks, like we have just got to overhaul these curriculum maps. Like it is time, you know? So I'll usually have 1 or 2 really big projects like that over the summer, but I can work on it for a couple hours and then put it away and get it back out, or work on it all day because I'm sort of into that. But the schedule is different. I don't feel like I have to just work, all day, every day on it. So that's nice. And I think it frees up my mind to be on that one thing. And then once things get busy again, I'm so glad that I was able to give that my full attention. So I'm not real good at turning it off, but I try, and I know it's important. And this year, for the 31st year, is the first time that I have scheduled in my workouts, because I would always let those go by the wayside 3 times a week. Like, my family will kick me out the door and I am going. And I am so glad that I am every time. I think I can't do this. I don't have time for this. I've got so much to do. And 1 hour later, I feel like a new person. So I know I need it. And I think while summer is a nice time to do things differently, it's almost more important to make sure that you're working those things in during the school year, because it's 10 months now. Mm-hmm. And if you're only taking 2 months and just part of the 2 months to sort of take a breath, and you're going hard. And when I say hard, I mean, I get up at 5 a.m. and I go to bed at midnight, and that's almost every day, because there's a lot to do. And I can't do that just, every day for 10 months and not be intentional about taking a breath every now and then. So I think finding balance throughout the year is really just as important as your summertime.
Another thing that really helped me my first couple of years of teaching was I felt like by the time I got to September, I almost was ready to start the school year over, because you learn so much in those first couple of months. And so what I started doing was I started jotting down, like, next year, I want to change this in my classroom. I want to run this process differently, how I write bathroom passes, or how I do notes, or anything that had to do with discipline. That was like, I want to start with treating my students this way and develop that in the class right away. So I jotted all that down. And then it would be like the week before school started during the summer, I would pull that out just to remind myself, hey, I want my classroom to be this way to begin with. Because yeah, you can change it midstream, but it's a lot harder to do that, and there are certainly definitely things that you don't put up with and you change as you learn and you grow. But there are other things that you just think, this would be so much easier if I start the year with that. And so starting with that in August and looking at that list, that really helped me a lot too. The first couple of years, and then it becomes natural. Like, then you walk into the classroom after like your 4th or 5th year and you're just like, okay, here we go, but it's those things to remind me of, like, I want to do this different or be more intentional about doing this.
Thank you both. Jean, I know you said you had to go.
No, I'm actually okay. I changed that conference, so I'm good till 7:15.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they want to make?
Hey, Adriana, I wanted to ask a question because this came up when the student officers were planning for our chapter meetings. The topic of rekindling your passion came up because some of the students were correctly talking about that one of the challenges they're worried about is getting into the field and running into losing their own passion, but maybe running into other teachers who have lost their passion. And I just wondered if you guys could give them, because there's going to be other next generation teachers who go back and watch this video, but what would you say to them in terms of how to go about keeping their passion so they don't become one of those statistics of teachers who leave the profession after 2 years? How do you stay passionate? And then what should they do if they run into somebody, a colleague, a veteran teacher in their building that has lost their joy and their passion? What do they do about it?
Jean, do you want to start with that one?
No, you go for it.
I think the first thing that I would say is that it is okay to have those feelings, and it is okay to feel like, is this the right job for me right now? That every teacher experiences those thoughts, and it's not wrong for you to ever experience that. The question then really is, what do you do with those thoughts? There's a lot of, sometimes those thoughts are because you're in a slump, like we talked about earlier. And by getting out of that slump, you come out of it and you go, yeah, no, I'm good. I really do enjoy this. Other times, even when you come out of that slump, it comes to a point where it's like, okay, so is my next step moving into administration, or is my next step becoming an instructional learning coach, or is my next step, doing something else that is still education related, but maybe isn't teaching? That's okay too. It's just constantly evaluating, should you be here? Because the last thing you want to be, like Dr. Oliver said, is that person who is teaching for like 50 years and everybody knows that they hate teaching. You don't want to turn into that. So for me, that question comes up periodically, and it almost always helps me to bring it back to the students. Almost always when I start challenging myself on that, it's cool because I'll have this like breakthrough with a student, or a student will come after school and be like, or send me an email. I'll get an email from a former student on those days, and I'll be like, I just out of the blue, like, thank you, you were the best teacher I ever had, I loved having you, and blah blah blah. And those are the things that you're like, okay, I am in this for a reason, and I really do enjoy this. I love working with the students, and I love getting them I love the curriculum, I love the students, I love putting the two together, I love being with them, I love being with all of that, and so it's finding that passion. I guess you just have to be careful to make sure that passion isn't an emotion. It's not like you're happy one day and you're sad the next day. It's got to be more like a joy. Are you joyful every day you're in the classroom, whether or not you're happy or sad? And if you're not joyful, then maybe teaching, it's time for you to move on. But if you are still joyful and you're just having a rough year or a rough season, then the seasons end. I had a friend of mine who just said, like, the bad seasons end just like the good seasons do. So if you can ride it out, it'll all get better in the end here. So yeah, kind of long story short, but that's kind of where I would go. I'm going to wait to hear what Jean has to say about dealing with colleagues, though, and see where we go with that.
You are?
Yeah, because Jean has a really, really good answer for that one, and I don't want to step on her toes with it.
Wait, no. What am I going to say? Give me a hint.
The mic is yours.
Oh, he went away. He muted. Okay, fine. Well, I'm not exactly sure what you're expecting, but I can say that, first of all, iron sharpens iron, right? Yes. And that means that you need to seek greatness. Mm-hmm. You will look around and you will find mentors. Oh my gosh. So when the 2016 thing came around and I was, getting accolades and whatever, and it feels like ridiculously weird because there's a million billion good teachers who should be getting this right now, but you just sort of have to be a representative. Anyway, I was getting inducted into my high school Hall of Fame. And so I went home. It was a big deal. My parents were so excited and I had to give the speech and whatever. So I'm there and I look up, and this makes me cry. Coming through the door was my very, very first mentor, the one who didn't have to be my mentor. She wasn't assigned to me, but she allowed me to talk to her every day and ask her questions. And she gave me the lay of the land and helped me to be who I eventually became. And there she was. And I said, I can't believe you're here. How did you even know? And she said, oh, I wouldn't have missed it. I wouldn't have missed it. So I can tell you that the mentors that you find in your early years never, ever leave you. Their words never do. You heard me say something that my mother said to me 29 years ago that set me straight and helped me to, you come up with some compasses from some of those amazing people. So you need to seek greatness, and there will be people. I remember I would say about 5 years ago, I was getting ready to coach. My principal decides who I coach, and everybody gets me, right? Because everybody gets to grow. So sometimes you're new and sometimes you are a 40-year veteran, and whatever, that we all need that opportunity to set goals and go and grow. And I had just given a PD. We were kind of filing out of a room. It was before school. There were several teachers around. And the person I had been assigned to most recently said, now I don't really want to do this. So everyone can hear this now, right? Like, this is embarrassing. And I said, but what do you mean? And she goes, well, that thing that you did with her down the hall, like, I don't want you coming here and doing that with me. And I said, you know what? We both work for the same person. So if you're feeling that way, I guess you're going to have to go and take it up with her. Now, in the end, obviously she never went and talked to my boss. I was there on Monday morning and did my thing. And never, ever in her life had she ever needed so much help. Her husband became gravely ill, and I ended up being in there for 13 weeks and essentially ran the place while she was able to be where she needed to be and do what she needed to do. And I think, again, you know, as much as that hurt my feelings, for me, this is a calling. And I pray every day in my parking lot before I come in here that God will have me where I'm supposed to be, that he will have me say what I'm supposed to say and do what I'm supposed to do and be who I'm supposed to be. And so I lean into that. And even when people aren't exactly what you want them to be, then there's a much greater power that is, you know, has chosen me to be here for these boys and girls every day. And that is where I go when things are really hard. I seek the greatness around me, but mostly I seek the greatness above me.
And you don't know either how much influence you're having on those people too. You know what I mean? Like, you're not just influencing students, you're influencing colleagues whenever you're doing that.
As in answer to your question, which was passion, I mean, if it feels like a calling, if it feels like what you're supposed to be doing, you'll have lots of days that'll be hard, but you'll never think, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Mm-hmm. You'll know you're where you're supposed to be and that this too shall pass. And then you need to seek out what you need, whatever that is. If it's a class that you need to take or a person that you need to ask to be your mentor, sometimes you have to go outside your school too, and that's okay. You know, we know educators somewhere else, and you know, gosh, today in social media and Zoom and phones and FaceTime and whatever we've got, there are so many ways to connect with people all over the country. So if there's somebody that you're admiring, don't be afraid to reach out to them and ask them to help you or come alongside of you in something. And you'll find that there are infinite ways to grow. And that is the answer to passion. You must keep growing. You must keep learning. And when it's not automatically happening, then it's up to you to seek it out.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to make? We have reached our 1 hour chapter meeting time. No. Kayla, if you want to go to the next slide. So I want to thank Flew and Jean both for being here and for answering our questions. You are both an inspiration to all of us teachers. And I encourage anyone watching this to go and check out the links that we sent in the emails of the videos of them getting their induction to the Teacher of the Year award. They're really inspiring to watch and to hear the students talk about and their colleagues talk about both of them. Here are the QR codes for our YouTube channel, our Facebook, Instagram, and our Purdue Fort Wayne website links. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to comment or email us at kdp@pfw.edu. Kayla, did you have anything you want to say?
Mute is not working. Sorry. There you go.
It's really confusing when you're in presenter mode because like you have to, it's like hoops and stuff you have to go through to do anything. Anyways, yes, I wanted to thank you guys again for coming. We definitely appreciate your time. We know teachers are especially busy, especially the Teachers of the Year, especially during COVID. And it really does mean a lot to us that you guys are able to come and talk to us. I think that it was fantastic. I loved your guys' speeches. I think that it had a lot of really insightful things that we could take with us no matter where we are in our teaching, whether we're going back for a master's or we're just starting out. I think these are really good tips, and I'm just so happy you guys came. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us. Yes, it's really fun to be able to, talk to people that are just starting out and to sort of, reminisce a little bit and appreciate all that we've been able to experience in our time in education. And it's exciting to know that passionate people like you are going to be joining us.
Mhm.
And one of you might just be one of our mentors, because when we seek out mentors, we don't worry about how old they are. A lot of times there's a lot of things that you can teach us, and we really appreciate those opportunities too. So don't be afraid to help others, early on. You do have knowledge that we don't, and we very much appreciate having that.
Thank you guys so much. Adriana, thank you. You did a great job.
Yeah, very good. Very nice.
Wonderful meeting.